Welcome back to the deep dive. We often think of these really complex, almost medically sophisticated crimes as something that only happens in big cities.
Right, in sprawling metropolis.
Exactly. But today, we are opening a file that just completely shatters that idea. It proves that the roots of revenge can run incredibly deep, even in the most, picturesque, small American towns.
We're talking about Corryville, Texas, a place where, and you have to love this detail, the main attraction is a local bakery.
Corryville Coffee Cakes.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And its owner is Ginger Lightley, but everyone, and I mean everyone, just calls her Ginger.
And this whole case, which our sources call sweet ginger poison, it all starts with something so simple, a cake delivery.
It escalates so fast, it just takes you through layer after layer of small-town secrets, these ancient grudges, financial desperation, and it ends in just a stunningly calculated double murder.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because the journey through the source material is it's key here. We have everything from police procedural notes to Ginger's own timeline that she kept herself.
Civilian timeline.
Our mission today is to really follow all the crumbs, the cake crumbs, the fingerprints, the financial paper trail to understand how something so small, like a stolen recipe book, could pave the way for this really insidious medical murder.
And that initial shockwave that just rocks Corryville, it comes in the form of the victim, Navy Newcomb, a young guy who, well, he literally drops dead across town.
After eating one of Ginger's famous personal-sized sweet ginger cakes.
And when the police show up, they just think, oh, it's an accident.
So the initial players, they're so well-defined in the sources. You've got Navy Newcomb, the victim. He's 25. He's this trust fund kid who just torched a $2 million inheritance. He is the sort of the central catalyst for all the misery to come.
Absolutely. Then you have Ginger Lightley herself, who goes from this sweet local baker to like an incredibly sharp amateur sleuth almost overnight. Her whole life is suddenly tangled up in this violent crime.
And we can't forget the official side of things.
Right, the official muscle. We have the brand new chief of police, Daniel Foenapper. The sources are pretty clear. He's inexperienced, green, maybe a bit over his head.
But he's also really proud of his new masters in criminal justice.
Oh, fiercely proud. He's the guy who's determined to solve this by the book. But he finds out pretty fast that the Corryville case files, they don't exactly have a chapter on bakers solving your murders for you.
Okay, this is where it gets really good. We need to move right into the scene of the crime and the first suspects.
We absolutely have to. We need to do a deep dive on Navy Newcomb's profile because, I mean, everything hinges on his character, or maybe the complete lack of it.
He was born into a lot of money, but the sources they're blunt. He squandered every single cent on, what was the list?
Sports cars, boats, hookers, gambling, and drugs. He was down to literally nothing but a Corvette.
Which he hadn't even fully paid off yet.
Exactly. The irony is just,
yeah,
it's staggering.
And the sources show he was reduced to doing this pretty pathetic volunteer work, delivering 3-day-old cakes to the Corryville country home.
A nursing home. And he was only doing it to try and convince his estranged mother that he'd, turned over a new leaf.
Also, she might turn the money tap back on.
That was the whole plan. And, he only got this job because the last delivery guy had a stroke. Right there in the kitchen, he became a resident.
Wow. That's a creepy detail. It's like Navy was just always hovering around the edges of disaster.
Always. And we have to pause here for this bizarre story the sources found about his name. It just perfectly defines the chaos of his life.
Oh, right. His father, Nigel.
Yeah. So Nigel sees him for the first time in the hospital, and he's apparently either half drunk or just, overexcited. And he insists on naming him Navy.
Because of his huge belly button.
Which was just a birthmark. And then in this just tragicomic twist of fate that basically sets the tone for Navy's entire life, Nigel walks out of the hospital, and moments later he's killed by a Greyhound bus.
You can't make this up. It's like absurdity, tragedy, and chaos are just baked into his life from the second he's born.
Which is probably why his end was just as chaotic.
Absolutely. It makes him deeply unlikable, but also, a victim with a huge target painted on his back. Okay, let's get to that critical timeline discrepancy. This is our first real clue.
Right. So Navy leaves Corryville Coffee Cakes at 7:10 a.m. The drive to the nursing home should only take about 5 minutes.
But he doesn't show up until 7:05 a.m. The nursing home staff, they have the clock-in records to prove it.
So that's a critical, unaccounted for 10-minute gap. And if you think about it, if this was just an impulsive crime, if someone just poisoned his cake at the last second.
They'd assume he'd drive straight there.
Exactly. But those 10 minutes, They gave the poison time to work while he was totally isolated in his car. Maybe he was meeting someone. Maybe just stopped somewhere. It screams premeditation. The killer knew his routine.
And while Navy is out there maybe just sitting in his Corvette back at the bakery, Ginger and her longtime baker, Addie Barneswaller, they've got their own crisis.
The recipe book is gone.
And Addie, she's a character.
Oh, she's a force of nature. The sources describe her as this, 61-year-old woman who looks more like a pro basketball player than a baker. She has this muscular build from decades of kneading dough.
And she and Ginger realize the book is just missing.
And what's so fascinating here, it really shows you who Ginger is the truth about this book.
Right. Ginger had created this whole story that the book had these secret, priceless recipes worth thousands of dollars.
But it was a fake. The sources confirm it. The whole thing was a psychological test.
A ruse to tempt new baker trainees.
Yeah, she was testing their honesty, not their baking skills. She was setting a little trap, not for the police, but just for her own, behavioral analysis. It says so much about the level of distrust already bubbling under the surface in that little bakery.
It really does. And the theft itself immediately sets up our first suspects, just based on who's there and who needed money.
You've got Lacey Greendale, the new assistant. She was outside on an unauthorized smoke break. So, opportunity.
And Navy Newcomb himself. He was broke. He was desperate. He was left alone in the kitchen for a few minutes. The idea that he'd steal a book to sell to a rival, that's a very strong early theory.
One of them took the bait.
Which brings us to Navy's final chaotic moments. He's at the nursing home. The sources say he ate his favorite cake, the sweet ginger cake, in his car during that missing 10 minutes. He even told someone it was delicious when he walked in.
And then as he's inside, a cook, just being nice, hands him a cherry tart.
He eats it, and that's when it all goes wrong.
Immediately, the physical reaction starts. He said it felt like a golf ball stuck in his throat. That's the rapid onset of anaphylactic shock.
He runs back to his car. He's frantically trying to open the glove box, just flinging the owner's manual, receipts, everything onto the floor.
Then he collapses outside and hits his head on the pavement. The initial police theory is simple. He died from hitting his head.
But that cook's observation is the key. The glove box, the contents scattered everywhere.
Exactly. The cook's observation is the critical counterpoint to that whole theory. Navy went straight for the glove box. If you're choking, you're not looking for your car registration.
No, you're looking for something that's going to save your life.
That frantic search, it immediately tells you this was a medical emergency, not some clumsy fall.
That's a perfect analysis because it transitions us straight into the next section, the path to murder and the critical clues.
And Chief Foenapper is immediately under a ton of pressure. This is where his inexperience really starts to show.
He's got the 27-year-old mayor, K. Houston Castle, breathing down his neck.
And Castle is this wealthy, aggressive political animal who just wants this put to bed in a hurry. A high-profile death is bad for Coreyville's image, bad for business.
So Daniel, the chief, he tries to simplify it. His first, politically safe theory is Navy choked on the tart, he fell, the blow to the head was fatal. Accident. Case closed.
But Ginger, the civilian, she just won't accept it. She's working on pure intuition and local knowledge. She and Reverend Elijah Beidman, he's her morning coffee confidant, they go visit Navy's girlfriend, Kayla Hanker.
Kayla is described as a former hooker that Navy had sort of settled down with, and Ginger, she immediately smells a lie.
A huge one. Kayla says she just woke up, but she's already wearing tennis shoes. And this is the key detail. Her cherry red Miata's engine is still warm.
That's classic small-town detective work. You don't need forensics, you just need to know how a car engine feels in the Texas heat.
Right. A car that's been parked all night feels very different from one that just pulled in. Ginger knows right then that Kayla just got home from somewhere. It's a massive crack in the whole accidental death theory.
But the chief, he's distracted by a much juicier, more conventional clue.
Oh, yeah. A deputy finds a really trashy item under the front seat of Navy's Corvette. A pair of sexy lace-up panties.
And they're marked Unlace Me.
Of course they are. And Ginger, because she knows all the local gossip, she instantly connects this to Lacey Greendale, the baker's assistant.
She remembers overhearing Lacey looking through a lingerie catalog just a few days before.
So this immediately shifts the whole focus. It's not about a potential love triangle with Kayla anymore. It's about a jealousy plot involving Lacey.
This is such a classic red herring, and it feeds directly into Foenapper's textbook, By the Numbers Approach to Crime. Jealousy, opportunity, motive, it all fits.
But before he can really dig into Lacey, the autopsy report comes back. And it gives us the definitive means of death.
The medical examiner rules out the blow to the head. That was a secondary injury.
The actual cause of death.
Yeah.
Rapid systemic anaphylactic shock.
Yeah.
And we have to just stop and acknowledge the sheer sophistication of this murder.
Let's focus on that for a second. For someone with a severe allergy, anaphylaxis it's the body's catastrophic overreaction to something.
It is. The body just floods itself with chemicals that cause the airways to constrict so you can't breathe, and at the same time your blood vessels dilate, and your blood pressure just plummets.
It's a fast, terrifying, and silent way to die.
It's medical murder pretending to be a natural event.
And the poison they found in his stomach, along with, cake ingredients like oatmeal and sugar, was liquid fish oil.
Liquid fish oil. This is the linchpin. The ME confirms two things that prove this was murder. One, Navy was severely allergic to all shellfish and fin fish. That's why the fish oil was lethal to him.
And two,
purified fish oil is completely tasteless and odorless.
that detail is it's chilling. And why liquid? That means this goes way beyond just an impulsive crime. You have to source medical-grade materials. You're not just popping open some capsules from the drugstore.
The killer had to inject this into that sweet ginger cake without changing the flavor, without changing the texture. This is calculated. It's designed to bypass the victim's senses entirely.
It's a killer who didn't want to struggle. They didn't want a messy scene. They wanted a death that looked natural, or at the very least, like an accident.
And then there's the final, sickening detail that proves intent. The ME asks Chief Foenapper a question.
Was Navy's EpiPen found?
And that confirms everything. Navy's frantic search of the glove box wasn't for his keys, it was for his life-saving epinephrine injector. So the killer didn't just inject the cake. They knew about the allergy, they knew where he kept the antidote, and they made sure that antidote was gone.
This is the moment Foenapper, under all that pressure, makes his big and totally wrong conclusion. He sees Lacey. She has the motive, jealousy, the opportunity. She works at the bakery. She has access.
And her fingerprints are probably on the glove box from planting the panties. For Daniel, the case is solved. Simple, conventional, Lacey's the killer.
It's just a textbook failure of analysis, isn't it? He goes straight for the low-hanging fruit, the jealousy motive, instead of thinking about the sheer medical planning that went into the poisoning itself.
He confuses access to the car with access to the very complex means of death. But as Ginger knows, especially in a place like Coreyville, the simple motives are almost always a distraction.
So let's move into section 4, where we unpack Lacey's dilemma and this new character, Danny's rage. Because the police pressure, it forces Lacey to confess to Ginger.
Right, and in doing so, she provides a necessary alibi for the murder, even while she's confirming the red herring about the panties.
She tells Ginger, yes, the panties are hers, and the chief's timing is right. She planted them that morning during her smoke break to try and break up Navy and Kayla.
And this is so vital. Lacey admits she opened the glove box where Navy kept his EpiPen, but she decided the panties would be more dramatic if she put them under the seat instead.
So her fingerprints are absolutely on that glove box door. It perfectly fits the chief's narrative that she was in there looking for the EpiPen to hide it.
But her confession to Ginger is that she never even saw an EpiPen. She just touched the door. Her motive was petty relationship sabotage, not murder. So the real killer took the EpiPen, and then Lacey came along and contaminated the crime scene with the perfect set of prints for a patsy.
And while she's trying to fight off these murder accusations, her personal life is it's imploding.
Yeah, she's living with this guy, Danny Eiper. And their relationship is described as volatile. Danny is deeply unreliable. He mirrors Navy's own recklessness, and Lacey is starting to see that pattern.
And the tension just explodes when Danny confronts her about the police investigation. He's holding a pistol.
He smashes a coffee cup in anger. The sources really paint him as dangerously unstable. And Lacey, in this moment of just pure self-preservation, she snatches the gun away from him and kicks him out of the house.
Which leads to Ginger's secret, incredibly risky move. She realizes Lacey has this angry ex, a potential murder weapon, and she's already the chief's #1 suspect.
So to protect her, Ginger hides Danny's pistol in her late husband Lester's safe in her basement. She knows it's obstruction of justice. It's a serious crime.
But her loyalty to Lacey and, frankly, her distrust of Foenapper's rush to judgment, it just overrides everything else. She thinks she's protecting an innocent person from being railroaded.
So now you have Ginger, the amateur sleuth, actively sitting on physical evidence in a major murder case. That complicates everything.
It does, and the circle of suspects just keeps getting wider, moving way beyond simple jealousy.
And it's Ginger and Elijah's conversations that pull in these other motives. historical revenge, and cold hard cash.
Let's start with the revenge. Chief Foenapper finally starts digging through old records, and he finds a powerful motive for Addie Barneswaller, the baker.
The police question Addie, and Ginger finds out the devastating reason why. Years ago, Navy had sexually assaulted Addie's 12-year-old granddaughter, Bobby.
Addie admits to the police that she hated him for it. Hated him. But she swears she didn't kill him. It's this deep, painful motive that just shoots her right to the top of the suspect list.
Even Navy's own mother, Elagora, she confirmed she was suspicious of Addie because of this very public, very painful history. Navy was a predator. A lot of people wanted him gone.
And this is where Reverend Elijah, who seems to know all of Coreyville's secrets, introduces the financial angle. The loan shark.
Manny Monet.
He owns Monet's Mastershine, a shoe shine boutique. It sounds so innocent.
But he runs a very dangerous side business. And we need to pause on how ruthless his operation is. The sources say he charges 20% interest per month.
20% a month? That's, what, 240% a year? That's not a bank loan. That's financial ruin.
It's designed to lead to ruin and violence. And Navy, having blown through $2 million, was definitely desperate enough to be deep in Manny's debt. So that gives you a serious, lethal financial motive.
Either he couldn't pay, or Manny made an example out of him.
Exactly. And the sources paint Manny as this intense guy who tried to be an artist, but turned to business and illegal banking after some dark events in his past. He's driven by profit and control.
And Ginger notices this small but crucial detail at Navy's funeral.
Right. She sees Manny looking at the casket, and he stifles a laugh. Not a cry, a laugh.
He was happy Navy was dead. That makes him a prime suspect for either doing it himself or ordering a hit.
So now we have Lacey for misdirected jealousy, Addie for historical revenge, and Manny for ruthless finance. And we have to move into the next section, bringing in the business rivals, because Ginger knows that stolen fake recipe book ended up somewhere.
She goes straight to the rival bakery. She confronts Cash Crawley, the donut king, owner of Cash and Carry Donuts.
And Cash admits it. He says Navy gave him the book. He was planning to use Ginger's secret recipes to launch his new product line, Cash and Carry Cupcakes.
Which the sources hilariously describe as just jumbo muffins.
And Cash denies paying Navy or killing him, but he does confirm Navy was willing to trade the book for something small, maybe a few free donuts.
And the sources give us that great detail about Cash. He couldn't even tell that the cupcakes made from the fake recipe tasted awful because he has a dull sense of taste.
It's just perfect small-town pettiness. He genuinely thought these bland, fake baked goods were fine, which explains why he was going to launch them against Ginger's amazing cakes.
So he had a motive for the theft, but less so for murder, unless he was afraid Navy would expose the whole deal.
But the rivalry goes deeper. And that leads us to Cash's older brother, Bull Crawley, the restaurant owner. They are described as just bitterly competitive.
Bull took steroids in high school. Cash hurt his hand fighting him. The rivalry is venomous.
And Ginger starts to connect Bull to the actual means of death. She goes to the Coreyville pharmacy and finds out that Bull used his company credit card to buy syringes and latex gloves.
That immediately gives Bull the means injection and a terrifyingly complex motive, framing his brother, Cash.
Wait, walk us through that logic again. Why would Bull kill Navy?
Bull didn't really care about Navy. He wanted to crush Cash. He knew Cash bought that fake recipe book from Navy. So by using this medicalized fish oil poisoning, Bull could plant the idea in the cops' heads that Cash killed Navy to cover up the embarrassing recipe theft.
And Cash's business would be ruined by the investigation and the bad press.
Exactly. It's an act of incredible malice, targeting his own brother, and just using Navy as a disposable pawn.
So now we have jealousy, revenge, finance, and now this insane business rivalry that leads to an elaborate framing plot. The suspect list is huge.
And then the whole thing just explodes. The murder count doubles.
The second victim, Danny Eiper, Lacey's volatile ex-boyfriend. He's found stabbed to death at an illegal dump site.
He'd arranged to meet someone late at night in a storm, supposedly to collect money he was owed.
This proves the two murders are linked. Danny was killed because of his involvement with Navy, and he was killed with a knife, not the pistol that Ginger is still hiding.
And this is where Ginger's insight just proves she's a better detective than the chief. She looks at the facts, Danny's missing gun, his need for money, the way he died, and she updates her theory.
She realizes Danny was hired by someone to kill Navy, but he failed. He chickened out. He couldn't go through with the shooting, so he tried to collect the payment anyway by lying to his employer, claiming credit for the fish oil poisoning that he had nothing to do with.
So the person who hired him, Manny Monet, or maybe Bull Crawley, killed him for the deception, and also, critically, to get the pistol back.
A pistol which, unknown to the killer, Ginger still has locked in her safe. This means the actual killer of Navy Newcomb stepped in and solved the problem with the fish oil, completely independent of whoever hired Danny.
It's this classic, intricate underworld scenario. A hit is ordered, the hitman fails, some unexpected killer takes out the target anyway, and then the original commissioner kills the failed hitman for trying to cheat them.
But who was the real killer of Navy? The plot is just thickening perfectly. It's pointing to this shadowy, calculated figure who needed Navy dead, but who also had the medical sophistication to pull off the fish oil poisoning.
It wasn't the lone shark who likes bullets. It wasn't Danny who failed. It wasn't Lacey who just planted panties. We need to move into the final section to meet the real orchestrator.
The final suspect. Sylvie Knox, the secret grudge.
And the final clues, they start popping up in the most random places. It forces Ginger to use her local knowledge one last time.
She notices this odd little detail. Identical, unusual potted plants in both Cash's and Bull's offices. They were these tropical plants that just seemed completely out of place.
She asks about them, and Cash says his plant was a gift from Sylvie Knox, his young, blonde employee.
Ginger is just so perceptive. She tracks down Sylvie, confronts her, and she looks past this youthful exterior and she sees this deep, deep pain. And she realizes that Sylvie Knox is actually Molly Casterside.
Navy's victim from high school.
This is the true motive. It's not quick revenge. It's a long, simmering vendetta fueled by years of sustained psychological trauma.
Sylvie, or Molly, was tormented in high school after she got a makeover and was seduced by Navy at his graduation party. He didn't just sleep with her, he publicly humiliated her afterward.
The sources describe just how cruel it was. She was given the nickname Molly Castor Oil, a constant public shaming that followed her everywhere, and the ultimate tragedy. The sources confirm she lost her pregnancy with Navy's child.
After her own mother died, Sylvie, or Molly, moved to Corryville for one reason: to get revenge on the man who destroyed her life.
We've gone from, what, a $20 stolen Kate book to this deep, personal vendetta that spans years. And it's all rooted in sexual violence and public humiliation, that kind of motive.
Right.
It trumps financial debt or business rivalry every single time.
And Sylvie confirms the mechanics of the murder to Ginger. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Oh, perfectly. She knew about Navy's severe shellfish allergy, and critically, she knew he kept his EpiPen in the glove box. She didn't learn this recently. She remembered a scene from years before at his graduation party.
She overheard Navy's mother, Eligora, yelling at him, saying, "One of these days your stupidity's gonna get you killed," because he only kept one EpiPen in his car.
So Sylvie had the perfect opportunity and the means while she was working for the Crawley brothers. She injected the tasteless fish oil into the sweet ginger cake, while Navy was inside giving the fake recipe book to Cash. She had access to syringes from her background working at a florist and a nursery.
Where she learned about plant-based chemicals and poisons, including, ironically, the castor plant.
Her targeting was just clinical. By using the fish oil and removing the EpiPen task she completed, before Lacey even showed up to plant the panties, she made sure that only Navy would be armed. She used the chaos of the fake recipe book, figuring the police would blame Cash and the business rivalry.
But Sylvie wasn't done with her symbolic acts of revenge. She admits to Ginger that she also poisoned Bull and Cash's coffee with a strong laxative.
It wasn't meant to kill them. It was meant to terrify them, to assert her dominance. She used her knowledge of the castor plant, which produces castor oil, the very substance from her humiliating nickname, to scare them. She was using the symbolism of her own trauma to get one last, non-lethal shot in.
And after confessing everything about Navy, she quickly denies killing Danny Eiper. She says her revenge was only for Navy. And then the tragic final twist happens. Immediately.
Sylvie instantly swallows a handful of castor beans, which contain the deadly poison ricin, and she drives her truck at high speed into an 18-wheeler.
The sources confirm it was an immediate suicide. The avenging victim had completed her mission and then exacted her own final horrifying sentence.
It's a dark, definitive end to the killer. It confirms the Navy Newcomb case is solved. But the Danny Eiper case, that still has one last piece of the puzzle.
Which brings us to our final section, conclusion and aftermath. Ginger gets a call from Chief Foenapper shortly after Sylvie's death. And the inexperienced chief, who started out on the completely wrong track with Lacey, he finally found the missing piece.
It was Ginger's decision to hide the gun that gave him the final breakthrough. Foenapper tracked Danny's pistol, the one Ginger finally turned over, and he traced its purchase to Manny Monet.
Manny Monet was arrested for Danny's murder. The chief pieced it all together. Manny hired Danny to shoot Navy.
Danny failed. He chickened out. Sylvie completely independently poised Navy. Danny, not knowing about Sylvie, tries to claim the bounty from Manny by lying. And Manny, realizing he's being cheated and needing to get his gun back, killed Danny at the dump site.
The timeline is now completely resolved. It connects the two deaths through finance and revenge, even though two separate killers were involved.
Navy's killer is confirmed. Sylvie Knox, who was really Molly Castor's side, committed the poisoning and then died by ricin suicide.
And Lacey is fully exonerated from both murders. She's forced to confront all these complex, troubled feelings about Navy and Danny, but she decides to keep her grandmother's house and just move on, no longer defined by their chaos.
And the town of Coreyville is just left reeling. Two murders, solved by this unlikely combination of amateur sleuthing from Ginger and the eventual motivated work of Chief Foenapper,
Who, despite his early mistakes, showed that his academic training could eventually be applied to real-world chaos.
and Ginger Lightley. After everything, the illegal weapons, the poisons, the contract killings, she tells her friends, the Domino Girls, that she is absolutely done with crime solving.
She's just looking forward to quiet mornings with them and Reverend Elijah.
It's the perfect ending for her. The amateur sleuth retreating back to the quiet rhythm of her bakery, realizing that the justice she helped find. Sometimes it comes with a horrifying self-inflicted price.
Which leaves us with the final provocative thought from this whole deep dive into Coreyville's secrets. We have to go back to the ultimate unseen consequence of Navy Newcomb's life. He was this wealthy guy, protected by status and money, even though he had a history of being a predator.
So how many other people, like Molly Castor's side, were truly hurt by his arrogance and his recklessness over the years? We know Sylvie's crime was deliberate. It was calculated murder.
Absolutely.
But when the victim was arguably a predator himself, someone who inflicted this sustained psychological and physical trauma that led to the loss of a pregnancy, and the killer is an avenging victim, how does the concept of justice shift in the eyes of the community or even in the eyes of the law?
Was Molly's crime just murder? Or was it the violent final conclusion to a systemic failure to hold Navy accountable for his actions for decades?
It's a really tough question of moral ambiguity that you have to think Coreyville will be wrestling with for years to come.
A tough, complex question to chew on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into sweet ginger poison.